Thanks, Nicola. Thanks so much for coming on Mod TV on our Friday show where we talk about connection. And the reason we've asked you to join us today is because you've been involved in the creation of Hub, an online space for young South Australians to visit, hang out, keep up to date, have their say, and connect. And that's something that we would love to know more about. So maybe to start off, you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what your role as the engagement and participation officer at the Commissioner for Children and Young People looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, I just wanted to say thank you for having me. Love Mod. I'm very excited to share what we've been up to with Hub. So I think a good starting point is to kind of the Commissioner for Children and Young People is a big title. I'm not sure everyone knows what that means. So we're quite new. The Commissioner first started in 2017. And the Commissioner for Children and Young People is a completely independent statutory office, which means that we report to Parliament and we work independently of government. So we're legislated to advocate for the rights, well-being and best interests of all children and young people across the state, which is a very big mandate. And we advocate for children and young people's involvement in decisions that affect their lives. And we give particular consideration to young people that are doing it tough. And in the Commissioner's work, a really important part of it is that she listens to the views of children and young people, and she collaborates with them and represents their voices in the public arena, with a special focus on children and young people who struggle to have their voices heard. And so in CCYP, my job is to connect the Commissioner with children and young people. So I kind of go out with her and meet face to face with young people. So far the Commissioner's met with over 5,000 young people across South Australia, and they are babies to 25-year-olds. So, and all across and in like South Australia, in schools, in organisations, in youth justice, anywhere you can think where children and young people are, the Commissioner's probably been there asking them what they care about. And for me, so my what I do is kind of looking at what can we do online with young people. I organise sessions, so that could be at school or any organisation. And sometimes it might end up that the Commissioner and I are in Rundle Mall polling young people on Friday at about 5 p.m. outside David Jones on play and what play means to them. And basically Hub came out of that work. So when you're talking about the creation of Hub, that's kind of the bit in our work around what we've heard from young people already. So my role as engagement participation officer is that kind of connection and working on how we can engage with young people and how we can increase their participation.
That's a big role.
It's a big role, but I think it's such a fun role. And young people are very, very funny, and it's very enjoyable, I have to say. I'm very lucky, I feel.
And can you tell us a bit more about what Hub is about?
Yeah, absolutely. So Hub is basically a place for young people to hang out, visit, collaborate, connect. And it's a website that kind of basically at the moment is like a youth club where young people can have their say on things. They have opinion pieces on it. There are musos on it, showcasing their talent and their passions. We have games on there. So we've just had gaming workshops. It's got a bit of everything in it, to be honest. And what it came out of was realizing kind of early on before lockdown happened that what we would miss, obviously, with isolation after COVID, are opportunities for young people to connect with each other. And obviously, like most organisations and businesses at the time, we went online and we were thinking about creating that space for young people. So Hub was that space for young people to be able to connect. And it was actually something that we've heard since the Commissioner started as the first Commissioner in 2017, is that children and young people in South Australia, especially young people, want spaces and places for them to hang out and to exist that represent themselves in their full nuance. And often as, 15 to 19-year-olds, that's not always possible. There aren't actually that many places around South Australia. And so we had a project called Youthful Cities. So we did a report on it called Youthful Adelaide. And we asked young people around like what would make the what would make Adelaide and South Australia more youthful. So you can see that on ccyp.com.au. That was a little plug that I just did there. Thank you.
That's okay. I've read that report actually, now that you've said that, and it is an easy read as well for a complete layman. Like, it's laid out very, very concisely and clearly, and it does give some really interesting insights, because it does reflect as well. I mean, I'm 35, and it reflects what I was thinking as a teen as well. So it's obviously this kind of ongoing theme, and it's so good that you're tackling it at that level as well.
Yeah.
So what was involved in the creation of Hub? So when did that first idea for the platform come about?
So I think it first came about in conversations really early on around young people kind of thinking of South Australia as a retirement village, and some of the kind of comments that we have around South Australia. As someone that comes from London, I was quite, I think Adelaide's really chill and cool, and there is, it's not as vibrant as London, obviously, but there was this really negative perspective that young people had and their value, that they felt that they didn't really feel valued, and they didn't feel like Rundle Mall or the city of Adelaide was theirs. And they couldn't participate in just walking around and feeling like ownership over it. So really early on, it was something that we heard, and the commissioner, during her listening tour, something that was on the top 5 priorities of what young people said was important was about opportunities and creating more opportunities to participate, to collaborate, to connect. So yeah, it was kind of something that was really early on, of this idea of creating that place. And often we think of that as an offline center, or something where young people can actually meet face to face. But there was always this kind of digital platform, and from the very beginning, and my role initially was more that. So it's always been something that we've been thinking about, and obviously with COVID and how we couldn't go out and do polling in the mall, or go out and meet with schools. That wasn't an option. So it created this great opportunity for us to be able to action Hub and create that place for young people to collaborate and connect, and just be and exist in it and feel like it's theirs and have ownership over it.
Yeah, it's so important. What kind of features can visitors expect to find on Hub?
So I guess on one element, like the features of Hub, is that we want it to be really driven by young people. So we want it to be really dynamic. We want it to be something where young people can add things to it that can be really responsive. We want it to showcase them. So we've got opinion pieces where young people are writing their, whatever they think is important, whatever they care about that week, they'll write an opinion piece on it. We've also got, now we've got more partnerships on there. So we've got Music SA, we've got schools and bands being presented on it. We have gaming, so we've got different, so we had a partnership with AEL, so you've got like gaming workshops on there. We've got polls, so we'll have like poll of the week. We've got one of my favorite segments on it, which is Word, and it's basically words that young people are using at the moment. As someone that, I still think I'm quite young, I'm not in the bracket of youth anymore, that the commissioner keeps reminding me, but and so I think I use very youthful language, and I realized when we got sent in some of those words, I don't actually know what they mean, so that was quite enlightening for me personally. So we have lots of different fun activities going on, and one of the really important parts of it is to be dynamic and responsive and being driven by young people. So hopefully those features will change as well, and be updated and be driven by what young people want.
I'm so glad that you brought up Word, because that's my favorite part from having a look at Hub. And yeah, even I was amazed to see that cooked is spelled COOKT. I was like, I didn't even know how to spell it right. I was spelling it the old school way.
It does change the pronunciation of it quite rapid, like quite specifically. So cooked to then cooked. So different. Yeah.
It's wild. So eye-opening.
It is wild, yeah.
And I also love when you were talking about the origins of Hub, about the fact that young people have this attitude towards Adelaide as somewhere that they don't necessarily fit in, or a place that isn't inclusive of youth or even vibrant. Because as someone who grew up in Adelaide, I absolutely remember going through my youth, especially teenage years, and having this idea that Adelaide was somewhere that you grow up to leave, because
Yeah.
everyone that you idolized and thought was cool was like, oh, they went to Melbourne or they moved to Sydney. And I remember getting to an age where I thought, actually, Adelaide's pretty cool. And it's sad that it took me until my 20s to realize that.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that we heard really when we were doing that project around spaces and places for young people was whether that is real, like whether you can make it here, or whether it's this perception. And I think, and this isn't necessarily, this is a hypothesis. So, just from what I've seen is I think that it's also the way in which young people feel valued in South Australia, that's, and then as you get older, you feel more valued. So then you see it differently. And I think one of the really important parts of Hub is showcasing to young people as well as adults that like young people are very diverse. They have very diverse opinions. One of the amazing parts of my job is that I get to go out and listen to those, and I get to write it up and scribe it. And, obviously the commissioner is leading that, but just being in the room and young people sharing what they think of the world and South Australia and the state, we see that young people are really diverse. And, often what we are shown them to be is actually very different. They have very very different opinions. They're, very diverse. And I think that's also what we want to showcase on Hub, is that young people are nuanced, and they think differently. It's a different generation. So we also want to showcase that. And that was definitely something that came out of Youthful Cities. But I guess every kind of session that we have with young people, and I think that's a really important thing to show young South Australians as well.
Mm. Yeah, it's such a powerful thing. And you spoke before about how Hub, the idea was born before COVID isolation, but of course the actual launch of the website happened fairly on in social isolation. And so I wanted to speak about something else that's included as part of CCYP's work at the moment, which is the series of reflections on COVID-19 by South Australian young people. Can you tell us what it has been like to read and compile these perspectives?
Yeah. So I guess obviously South Australia hasn't had quite as severe an experience of COVID thus far, touch wood, as other places. But we know that it's going to, like, COVID and isolation is going to seriously affect a generation, especially young people that are graduating, whether it's year 12 or university, and the opportunities that come with that, and also just the impacts of having, fear, this absolute fear, and everyone around them being scared for their futures, and what that has on children and young people, the effect that has on them. So we, as we were doing Hub, actually, one of the same conversations that the commissioner and I were having was around documenting that as a really important historical perspective, and noting that previously that hasn't always happened. We haven't gone out and heard young people at these really important, pivotal times in our history. So that was something that we really wanted to do. So we started doing that, and we heard from over 300 young people during the weeks in which we were in social isolation in South Australia. And we asked them around what were their experiences of it, and what impact did that have, and how do they think that this is going to impact their future, and what are their hopes for the future? What do they want in a post-COVID world? And so it was incredible. It was a phenomenal thing to hear these really profound opinions on what they think, what rights they want to see protected, and this just really incredible stuff that we were able to read and see and hear. So we've just released the report of all of that information, and it's not come out with 17 recommendations of what young people think around the future, but it is really thinking about one of the things that we did hear from young people was, previous to COVID, the world wasn't fair for everyone, and South Australia wasn't the fairest place for everyone. And young people, when we heard, was this is an opportunity post-COVID to ensure that we live in a fairer, more equal kinder world. And that's something that we've heard throughout our work. But this is definitely something post-COVID, and these reflections that we hear a lot. And, you know, the very existence of this office and the commissioner is around the fact that young people don't have a voice in some of these huge decisions. And the fact that, you know, we're going to have a state plan, a national plan afterwards, after more than likely to have a recession. It is thinking about the importance of hearing from young people, because these young people in 10 years will have gone through this, and then there'll be adults that will ask them to, you know, ask for their opinions. But by that point, it's too late. So yeah, it's an incredible experience to hear all of that in such a historic time as well. And I'd urge everyone to have a read because it's very, very interesting.
I've really enjoyed the excerpts that have been posted to CCYP's social media. And as you say, it's amazing just how profound some of the reports, some of the reflections are as well. Yeah, it's really powerful stuff. And this might include some of what you just answered, but what have been some of the most rewarding parts of bringing this project, but also of working with CCYP in general?
Yeah, so I think, you know, so our work is around systemic advocacy, which anyone will tell you does not happen overnight. And so just being able to see small changes, and seeing, you know, small wins where young people have expressed something and we've been able to advocate for their rights, and then seeing those decisions been changed after hearing from young people, that's really, really powerful stuff. And I think just, you know, generally working with young people, being able to hear from them, and being able to, you know, respond to those opinions. And, you know, often when Helen and I go out and we hear from young people, we'll walk away and sit in the car and be like, wow, that was incredible. And I think it's very cliche to say, but, you know, when we do hear these opinions from like young people, we're in pretty good hands. There, you know, there's a term going around like the kindness generation, and this generation being more thinking more about the environment and people and wanting a better world and all of those kind of things. And I think that's pretty true from what we've heard. Young people want everyone to be kinder. They want more equality across the board. And obviously that's generalizing, but that's definitely a big theme that we've seen. So I think that has been something, just being there and hearing from them is always really rewarding.
I guess we always think of the younger generations are the ones that are going to change the world. There's always that, you know, the next generation, and this generation are definitely in a unique position because the world will actually need rebuilding. So, you know, what we do and what they do over the next probably 10 years, you know, looking forward, will actually really count.
Yeah, and I think there's more of a so a big part of the work that we're doing at the moment is around this generational gap that we have, and that change isn't going to happen if there's this huge generational gulf. Like, we do really need to work together, and ensuring that like we're able to do that, ensuring that young people don't by the time they get to 18 feel so disrespected or feel so you know, kind of pushed to one side that they don't want to participate. And, you know, when we see civics and citizenship and the way young people are, you know, not participating necessarily because they haven't had those opportunities, that will affect our society dramatically. So yeah, there's you know, obviously we talk about the next generation coming through, but I think there's also something to be said for the fact that realistically we just need to be able to work together and include as many different voices in whatever we do as you know, as governments, as communities, to be able to include young people and include different voices. And I think that's a really, really important part of whatever we rebuild or whatever the problem that we're trying to tackle is. That's very, very important. And we've heard that as well from young people around the kind of empathy that they have for decision makers, because making decisions isn't easy, and young people recognize that. They just want to be a part of it. So
yeah, absolutely. That respect and inclusion is so important, and you just don't see it for younger generations. You know, it's kids are definitely looked down upon in those kind of areas. So what elements throughout all this have been challenging or surprising?
I think actually one of the big, so for Hub, I think one of the things that we did find quite interesting is kind of the diversity of young people's opinions has been quite interesting. And I think, I've been quite surprised as well by the kind of opinion pieces and the views that young people have represented. They have been really profound, and they show that young people and young South Australians are not a homogenous group by any means. We think of young people, we talk about young people as a term, as a group, but actually they're very different, and they have very different opinions, just like people do. They're just younger. And I think like their capacity to be able to participate and contribute to the vision and the future of the state is massive. And if you go through the Hub and see some of the opinion pieces and the young people that are championing, I can speak, rights for their peers and for people that they care about in the community. I think, I don't know if it's necessarily surprising, but it's very interesting. And I think the other thing is that, we've had so many young people throughout COVID that have really, really wanted to participate, that have, contacted the commissioner saying like, I've seen what you're doing, I really want to be a part of it. And, we really want to see that continue into the future, because it's really, really important. And I think, hopefully this is an opportunity post-COVID for them to continue doing that and actually be included in these huge conversations that we're having about our future.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say to people who might be thinking about getting involved in Hub?
Head to hub.ccyp.com.au, and there is a tell us, there's a tell the commissioner, get involved. There are so many different ways on Hub that you can have your say and connect with us. And they're, like we said, it's very, very responsive and very kind of dynamic. If there's anything that young people want to see and do on Hub, we're super happy to hear whatever they want, and we'll do it.
And are there any other projects or initiatives that you're working on at the moment, or maybe have worked on in the recent past, that you're allowed to share with us?
I don't know. I'm like, where's the commissioner? So I guess the big one was our COVID reflections, and that will continuously be the thing that we're referencing at the moment. I don't know if actually has it been released yet? It might not be released. I don't know if I can tell you. We do have a few reports coming out of the many conversations and consultations and opinions and thoughts and experiences that we've heard from young South Australians that we're releasing, that will be released. And that will be like continuous, and we'll keep doing that. And there are also so many different ways that young people can get involved in our work. And that if young people are passionate about something, definitely head to Hub and tell us what that is and get involved in the work that we're doing, because it is really important, especially now more than ever, when we've got an environmental crisis. We have a global pandemic, we have civil unrest. I think hearing from young people is about as important as it's ever been to ensure that our future is safe and vibrant and, kind as well.
And is there anything you're particularly looking forward to in the near future?
I think it actually, maybe I am just ridiculously optimistic, but and that is probably true, but I think it is an opportunity. I think there are, post-COVID, there is an opportunity to ensure that young people have real mechanisms that are in government and in communities and whatnot, to participate in decision making and not only feel like their voices are heard, but acted upon, and that they're a part of some of these big conversations. And I think that, post all of these scary things that are happening around us, that that this might be a really great opportunity to see that come into fruition. And for us in systemic advocacy and looking at how things change, it doesn't often happen overnight, but I'm quite hopeful for the future.
That's good. I think we need to be. I think there's no other choice at this point. It's either, sink or swim.
I think head to Hub for that, and maybe stay away from your Twitter feeds, whatnot. Just stay away from that and just head to Hub. hub.ccyp.com.au. It's all lovely. You'll love it.
I love that. And you're on the socials as well, aren't you? You've got your Facebook and Instagram all up and running.
So our Instagram has all of the stuff that we're working on at the moment. Like Jacob mentioned, thank you, Jacob. We have these lovely Instagram graphics that are real young people that did some journals for us throughout COVID that are a part of our COVID reflections report. And that's their real photos and their real quotes that they spent, about half an hour every week writing their journal and thinking about how COVID's affecting their lives and social isolation is affecting their lives and what impact they think it's having, and then the impact that it's having on their future. So they spend that time, and now we've got these beautiful, incredible quotes and their photos. So that's happening at the moment on our Instagram, but we always have new things out. Sometimes we do polling on there as well, so I definitely recommend young people follow CCYP_SA on Insta. Chuck us a follow.
So many things to check out after today's chat, and unfortunately that is the end of our chat.
No,
I know, half an hour
fast.
Wow.
Unreal.
I really can talk.
Oh, that's what we've got you here for. So you've fit the job perfectly. And so thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to speak with us. It's been a really enlightening and comforting discussion. Actually, I feel really, you've given some optimism to me too. So now I feel really positive. So thank you for that.
There you go. That's a good takeaway. Love that. And I'm getting it from young people. So it's just a domino effect, passing it along. Great. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, guys. And if everyone can check out Hub, it's a really great resource and a place for young South Australians to just be and exist and see themselves represented.
Awesome. And our one of our moderators will chuck the links down in the chat below. So go check them out. Awesome. Thanks so much,
again.
Nicola.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.